All right, here's the official syllabus. If you want a copy of the syllabus or look at it, you should be able to. Give me a second. Let me log myself in here. So this should all be, you should be able to grab a copy of the syllabus, which is here and here. Here are the slides. Here's the official syllabus. Okay. All right, let's go over the syllabus so I can legally say that I did that. This is DES 527, Interaction Design 3. Section 1, there is another section being taught. So if the asynchronous doesn't work out for you for whatever reason, or, you just don't like me as a teacher, that's fine too. I won't take it too personal. There is another section. I'm looking up. I should have done this before I start recording, but isn't it great that I can look up stuff online? You want to see that, right? Let me look this up real quick. I know there's another one. Give me 2 seconds. Doesn't this make for riveting video? Uh, Maybe not. I thought there was another section of it, but I'm wrong. For some reason, I thought there was a second one, but I guess not. Okay. So I take that back. There is not another section of this particular course, at least not this semester. Okay. So this is section 01. My name is David Hurwitz, as I mentioned. Some of you have had me before. I know who's in this class. Some of you have not. If you haven't had me, look me up on Rate My Professor. I usually get pretty good reviews. I'm a 3 on the level of difficulty, which out of 5, which I think is a fair assessment if I was going to assess myself. In terms of email, I have an email for this school. It's David Hurwitz at sfstate or sfsu.edu. I also have an email at every other college I've ever taught at. So I mentioned how I'm like teaching at 3 colleges this semester alone. So my point is that sometimes rather than emailing me, it's actually just easier to go by my personal email, which is just my name, David Hurwitz at gmail.com. I check that one more often. So, you're much more likely to get a response. Or another way is you can actually email me through the Canvas inbox, which is another thing. I check that pretty often. So that's another great way to, get a hold of me, that kind of thing. All right. This is a 3-unit course. This course is going to be taught asynchronous. Okay. Originally, it was going to be at least hybrid, but unfortunately, it didn't really work out with my schedule. So this course is going to be taught asynchronous. I'll talk a little more about it, but essentially, what's going to happen is I'm going to be releasing modules twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. Okay, so it's basically kind of like how I would teach a class, just in video form. I'm gonna have, if you've had me as a teacher in person, it's not, I wouldn't say it's dramatically different than how I teach it online, but just get an idea of that. Prerequisites. So to take this course, you must have completed DES 322, 323, 327, 427, 356, and 370. Okay. With a C or greater or passing grade. Okay. That's required for this. In this course, we're going to be going over, I'm not going to be teaching a lot of new programs, or at least I'm expecting that what like you guys have a basic background. So, I will go over Blender real quick, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time because in theory you covered that in 427. The same goes for Unity. The same goes for basic understanding of like, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe InDesign, that kind of stuff. I'm expecting you coming into this course with you don't have to be like an expert or anything, but at least a decent knowledge that if I say, build me a simple model in Blender and bring it into Unity, that you can do that. You should have learned that in 427. And I will go over some of this real quick next week, but I'm not going to really dwell on that because in theory, I have so much to teach you that's builds all off of 427 that I don't really have enough time. I don't have a lot of time to kind of repeat all of that again. Okay, that's why it's important that you've taken these classes so that I know that you at least have a basic understanding of it. Like I said, you don't have to be an expert or anything like that, but at least like if I said, here, take this photo and edit it, you could bring it into Photoshop or Clip Studio Pro or whatever it is that you want to use and understand how to do that. Course description. This course offers an introduction to experimental prototyping in 3D with an emphasis on virtual reality, designing for so-called XR continuum of immersive and augmented media. Topics will include prototyping techniques for VR, environmental design, and immersive media, immersive design fiction, social VR, and augmented reality experience prototyping. That's a lot of gibberish words right there, a lot of $10 words, as we would say. But basically, it's like you guys know how to build a 3D world, or at least the basics of it in Unity. That's what 427 was, at least when I taught it. Anyone who was my student should have at least a basic understanding of that. What we're going to be doing now is using Unity to build an immersive environment. Okay, we'll talk about more about what that is in tomorrow or next session. We're going to be using software, browser-based software to build some very simple augmented worlds. Eventually, I'll teach you guys how to use Unity to build worlds that you can import into an Oculus Quest specifically. So that is virtual reality. We'll talk more about that later. And we're also going to talk about augmented reality. What is augmented reality? Augmented reality is when you have an app on a phone. The best way I kind of explain it is it's kind of like Pokemon Go, where it's like you're putting a virtual item into information that is real. So if I were to point my camera forward and let's say I'm taking a picture of my backyard and I decide that every time that there's a light or every time there's a light within the video camera, I'm going to put a picture of a cartoon mouse or something. That would be augmented reality. It's based on reality, but it's still augmented, aka it's changed. Okay, so we'll talk about that. This is going to involve us installing a lot of stuff. I'm not going to lie to you, a lot of this stuff is very, patchwork, meaning like there's not a great application that does it. We're really taking existing apps and we're kind of like adding code on top of it. So, it hopefully things work out and I'm hoping they do. But keep in mind that like this is not going to be as straightforward as maybe like, working in Photoshop or Illustrator. And then when you get to this level of kind of interaction design, we're kind of on the cutting edge here. So there really isn't any good applications I can give you other than Unity that would build VR worlds, you know what I mean? Or augmented reality. So it's like we're kind of patchworking what we know about 3D models and Unity, and we'll talk a little bit about code and stuff like that, C sharp, which hopefully you guys went over in your 427. I went over with my students, at least basic. We'll go over it again, but just to give you an idea, that it's like, what we're doing is a little more hackery than what you've probably done in other classes with design. Okay. By the way, this is my second time teaching this course. I don't normally teach it, so I'm still kind of learning how I want to teach it. So if it seems, so I'm open to suggestions. I may change things that I did last semester. I may, so if I'm doing something a little different than maybe other students have, that's why it is that way. Learning outcomes. Learning outcomes for this course include demonstrate familiarity with approach to designing for emerging media, aka VR, AR. Demonstrate understanding of how to prototype in and for virtual reality. So even though we're doing cool little VR stuff and all that, we're still doing processing. Okay. And what that means is like okay, if I'm building a VR world, who's it for? What do people want to do in the VR world? What do they want to see? How do I guide people to get from point A to point B without literally having to say, go from point A to point B? Because that's boring. No one wants that. But how do we like draw attention so people do things, right? All of this is like processing user experience. And so we're definitely covering that. Again, I know you guys have had this in other courses and it's still going to come up, but it's like, how do I apply this in a 3D, VR or AR environment? Okay. Demonstrate XR prototyping techniques, demonstrate ability to deploy VR as a prototyping for a range of design contexts, such as environmental design, experimental simulation, ambient media, social augmentation, what that really means is like, how can we use VR? Okay. The obvious way to think of it is like, let's build a game and I'm running through and I'm capturing, I'm getting coins and things like that. Another way to think of VR, my wife is works for the port department and they were going to build a new building, literally. Like they're going to build it and put in new offices and all that. And so the design firm actually built it in VR so that she could wear it and walk around virtually and look at the world. Or you could create a VR experience to simulate something that would be hard to do. For instance, NASA has always been experimenting with VR for training astronauts because it's like, when they get in, you can't really simulate weightlessness easily. I mean, you can, but it's hard to do uh, it on Earth, but you can do it very easy or a lot easierly with VR. So, like, this kind of how to use VR in a, productive way, so to speak. And we'll be honing critical thinking skills, giving back feedback. You guys have done this in other courses. I'm assuming you know how to do this. That just means critiques. I will be giving you critiques. You're going to download and view other people's stuff. All right, course materials. This is hardware. You're going to need a computer, since obviously this is an asynchronous course. You're going to need a computer that's going to be able to handle the installs of everything that you guys are going to use. This includes things like Unity, Blender, and stuff like that. Eventually, there's a program called SideQuest that I want you guys to install. This will let you install other people's VR worlds into your headset really easily. There's also I also want you guys to have backup. Uh, Sorry, I got distracted there for a second by an email. I need you guys to have like a backup. You're gonna have a lot of big files sometimes, especially Unity files can be pretty large, as you probably remember from 427. I would really recommend like a drive or an external hard drive. I would say, having a good backup, like a backup of about 500 gigs would be good, just in case. I'd strongly recommend you guys having cloud storage. Cloud storage is storing your files online as opposed to storing it on a physical hard drive device. Examples of that would be like Dropbox or Google Drive. You guys actually have box.com accounts. So for instance, especially when you start giving me like APK files or something like that, they may be like 100, 200 megabytes. I don't want you to submit them via Canvas because it starts overloading Canvas. Canvas only lets me store X amount of space. So instead, what I'd like you guys to do is upload it to something like a box.com, and then you can share me the link to the files, and that'll just make life a little bit easier for everyone. Okay. Let's talk about software. Okay, there's a couple softwares that you're going to need for this course. You're going to need Unity. I would like you guys to have a newer version of Unity. So I believe that's Unity 5. Am I right? Which version of Unity? Unity engine. Give me sorry, Unity 6. Okay. I'd like you guys to have a newer version, and the reason why is not because I care if you have the latest, greatest version. It's more that like um the way you do things is a little different between 5 and 6. And so not to confuse everyone, if everyone's just on 6, it just makes it easier so that I don't have people going, why doesn't it show up on my end? So I just ask politely that you, even if you have 5, maybe you installed it like a year ago or something, just upgrade to 6. It shouldn't take too much. I would recommend having Blender. Anything post 2.9 is fine. You don't have to have the latest, greatest one, but you know, the reason why is you may build models that you want to put into Unity, so you can use Blender for that. Another piece of software you're going to need, and we'll talk about this later, is called SideQuest. Okay. What SideQuest is SideQuest is software that will let you install a APK file that someone gives you onto your Oculus Quest. Okay. This is what we call side loading, which is when you install a program that's not officially from like the Google store or something like that. So eventually what I want you guys to do is install other students' worlds into your headset so that you can play with them and walk around and all that. And the easiest way to do that is to have this piece of software. We're not going to need it for a little bit, but eventually you're going to need to install it. I'll have a video about how to work with that later. We also are going to code a little bit. So you need some sort of coding program. You can use any coding program you want. I'm going to be using or demoing from VS Code or Visual Studio Code. You're welcome. I also recommend it because that's kind of the one that works defaultly with Unity anyway. But you know, it's up to you however you want to do it. Other things you're going to need, you need to have a school email. Just so if I send you guys any messages or anything like that. You're also going to have course send you, you need to have a Canvas. The point of the Canvas is I may need to send you guys files every once in a while, or, you know, sorry, what am I saying? The point of Canvas is that I'm going to be giving you guys, this is how, you know, especially because we're asynchronous, if I give you guys demo files to work from, they'll come from here. If there's videos, they'll be in the video section. If there's homework or, you know, labs, whatever you want to call it, it'll be over here. There might be video or there might be links that I give you, like these are video links. Eventually I may give you like APK files or files to download for your Unity session and all that. So all of that's going to be here. You're going to submit me your work via Canvas. You're also going to I'll submit you guys grades via Canvas. So all of this is, you know, if you've had me before, you know how much I use Canvas. It's the same thing to be for this course too. All right, so this is an asynchronous course. What that means is that we're never officially going to meet in person. Okay. That being said, I am holding office hours that I'll be holding once a week from 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay. This is open lab hours that I keep for all of my classes. You're welcome. By the way, they're live via Zoom. So you're welcome to, this is the Zoom ID. This is the Zoom password. You're welcome to come and ask me any questions. Sometimes this is easier to, what's the word? Troubleshoot live than it is via, you know, email and all that kind of stuff. So just, you know, if you have any questions, come meet me. Just note that, you know, as I say to everyone, it's like this is my office hours for all of my courses. So what that means is that like, you know, people maybe I teach, for instance, I'm teaching 2 other courses this semester, one on web development and one on, you know, user experience. So someone's asking me about like web development, don't be weirded out about why that has nothing to do with 527. It's just because they're from a different course or something like that. Okay. Self-help. The field of digital media is constantly changing. What is new today may be obsolete tomorrow. This reason, students and professionals must demonstrate self-help abilities. There's a plethora of free or paid online resources that you can usually get through the semester in order to enhance your technical and software ability. Um, you know, a lot of what we're doing is really cutting edge, and so I'm going to be honest, it's like uh sometimes it's like I gotta find a video where someone's like this, like it may be something along the lines of you find a video that explains how to do a particular thing you want to do for VR. It may be that someone hasn't even written the code for it, or maybe it's installed, but you have to like install the code via like a repository to, Unity or something like that. So like keep in mind that like a lot of this stuff is very new. Okay. There, so I will, there's not necessarily a lot of books per se, but there might be a YouTube tutorial, or maybe there's like a, you know, like it's a discussion online or something. This might be where like, if you have like a Slack for your, for students, you may want to ask each other advice and things like that to kind of point you in the right direction. I will always point you in the right direction, but like, like I said, it's like I'm new to this too. I haven't been doing VR very long, and a lot of this is kind of hacked together piece of software. So it's like, some of these like maybe it worked 2 years ago, but now it doesn't work because we've updated Unity or something like that. So it's like just keep in mind that like you may have to do some troubleshooting from time to time. Grades will be required you'll be required to complete several exercises and projects throughout the semester. You must complete all assignments to pass the course, regardless of your final grade. Not turning in a project or late grade will result in a grade of 0, which will affect your overall grade in the course. Those of you who had me kind of know that I'm not an easy teacher. I'm not a hard teacher. I like to consider myself somewhere in the middle. One thing I'm kind of a stickler about is when things are due, they're due. Okay. Um, I consider that more of a life skill than anything else, which is like you can't turn in your rent whenever you feel like it. You can't turn in your federal taxes whenever you feel like it. If you're working with a client and you've agreed to do it by X date, if you don't do it by X date, they're going to be mad at you. Okay. You're probably going to lose that client in the future. So it's a life skill that I think is important. Um, when I give labs or assignments, I will formally say, this is a lab. I will tell you the due date. You should know, you're always welcome to ask me questions. There's always time to work on it. So nothing's ever due like the same day or the same week. So you should have enough time that you should be able to work on it if you budget your time effectively. Um, if you have questions, you can email me or come to my, office hours or something like that. Or if that doesn't work out, you're welcome to try to schedule with me if there's time, something, and we can try to work it out. So, turn stuff in. It's better to turn something in late than not at all. If you don't turn something in at all, that's a 0. But if you turn something in late, I will still grade it. It just will get marked down depending on how late it is. Attendance for this course, obviously there's no physical meeting, not even virtually meeting via Zoom, but I can tell when you guys log into the Canvas. So you guys are required to log into Canvas minimum 1 time per week, unless there's some sort of extenuating circumstances. There's also discussion questions. Um, I want this course to kind of feel like an actual course and not just a list of YouTube videos, curated and that kind of thing. So I like there to be sort of discussions between me and you, between yourself and other students. That kind of makes the course a little more interesting. Your final grade is going to be broken down into this. The labs together are going to be about 50%. Um, your assignments as a whole, which they're last semester I had 3. I may change that this semester. Like I said, I'm still kind of tinkering with this class. Should be about 3 assignments, give or take. Participation, which means logging into the course, participating in group discussions, being part of critiques, online critiques, and all that sort of stuff. That's about 10% of your total grade. Other things, university policies, plagiarism, cheating. Plagiarism. Cheating is the actual or attempted practice of fraudulent or deceptive acts for the purpose of improving one's grade or obtaining course credit, such acts also include assisting another to do so. Typically, such acts in relation to examinations. However, it is the intent of this definition that the term cheating may not be limited to examination situations only, but in that it includes any or all actions by a student that are intended to gain an unearned academic advantage by fraudulent or deceptive means. Plagiarism is a specific form of cheating which consists of misuse of the published or unpublished works by others by misrepresenting the materials, aka i.e. their intellectual property, to use one's own work. Penalties for cheating and plagiarism range from a 0 to an F on a particular assignment, through an F for the course, to expulsion from the university. For more information on the university's policy regarding cheating and plagiarism, please refer to the university catalog. Okay, that was a lot. In this course, there's going to be times I allow certain things, like for instance, in 427, I always required at least my students to build all of their models. I'm not going to require that for this class because this class isn't about 3D modeling. It's about world building. So I'm going to, like, for instance, allow you guys to use, models you find online. I'll allow you guys to, use audio files you use online. I'm not sure where I'm going to draw the line. I'll allow you to even like use possibly ChatGPT to write code, because this class isn't a coding program. It's about, experimenting or building VR. So, but that means like, if there's something that I don't allow, I will say it. But for instance, like, you can't just use someone else's world or someone else's thing without crediting them. So usually if it's like, if you're going to use someone else's model, you may have to, we'll set up like a credits or something where it's like you credit the modeler, you credit the music person, you credit the code that you got it from, that kind of thing. Okay. Disability access. Students with disabilities who need reasonable accommodations are encouraged to contact the instructor. The Disabilities Program and Resource Center, DPRC, is available to facilitate the reasonable accommodations process. The DPRC is located in the Student Services Building and can be reached via telephone 415-338-2472 or by email at dprc@sfsu, I said it right, .edu. So if you have either a physical disability, obviously for this class, we're asynchronous, so that wouldn't affect class, although if you had certain physical disabilities, that may allow you to get certain things like a particular type of keyboard or something like that. But if you have a learning disability, and you think that you should be given, special accommodation, usually that has to do with like a later due date or something like that, or more time, or something along those lines, just let me know. First of all, let me know, write me an email. And second, I would say is talk to DPRC, or Disabled Students Programs and Resources Center. I don't make evaluations based on accommodations. I'm not skilled and I'm not qualified to make those make those decisions. Instead, the Disability Program and Resource Center would make those decisions. And then, so you would meet with them, you'd set up an appointment, you'd meet with them, tell them your concerns, they'll evaluate you. I don't know how that works, but they will figure that out. If you are given accommodations, they will send me an email. It'd be nice if you are given accommodations to just remind me via email, and then we'll figure that out. Okay. So when in doubt, I would say, contact them. I think that'd just make it a lot easier. Sexual harassment policy. Student disclosure of sexual violence. SF State fosters a campus free of sexual violence, including sexual harassment, domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, and/or any form of sex or gender discrimination. If you disclose a personal experience as an SF State student, the course instructor is required to notify Title IX notify a Title IX coordinator by completing the following report form and emailing VPSAEM at sfu.edu. So what that means essentially is if someone were to either tell me in the Zoom session or tell me via email something that would fall under this category, if that were to happen, I'm required by law to tell Title IX. It is illegal for me not to tell Title IX. Okay. That being said, you can still tell me, just be aware that I'm required by law to do that. It's out of my hands. So if you didn't want me to tell anyone if you did not want me to tell Title IX, unfortunately, I can't do that legally. So just be aware of that. And by the way, it's not just me, it's any kind of instructor here at SF State. We're required by law to do that. If you want to disclose any sort of anything like that, but have it be confidential and not necessarily contact Title IX, my advice is to use the following: the Safe Place, which is an organization on SF State's campus, 415-338-2208, or there's a link to it. And I have a link on the module to it. Right there. And the Counseling and Psychological Services, 415-338-2208. These are good alternatives that don't come into that situation. Okay. All right. So hopefully that, we went over the syllabus. Hopefully it gives you a somewhat better idea of how the course is going to run. In the next video, I'm going to finish up talking about the syllabus. I'll show you my slides. And I'll show you guys some examples of some of the work that we're going to be doing, just so you have an idea of what we're going to be doing. And then I'll talk about your homework, one of which is we got to start filling out some legal forms so that you guys can pick up your equipment that you can have and start to work with it. Okay.